Camera on and video starts now. Hello and welcome to another video. I'm Reverend Elvis P. Monroe. And welcome to my channel. I know people are watching because my last video had 17 views. That's not bad for somebody with no subscribers so far. Today we're going to be discussing Saturday morning. What was Saturday morning? A lot of you kids out there, you millennials, and you of the new generation, have no idea whatsoever what Saturday morning was about. Well, I'm getting ready to show you. First off, every Saturday morning, we would get ourselves a big bowl and we would fill it full of this or any other cereal. Now, this is a newer box of cereal, of course, newer box of Lucky Charms, and as you can see, this one, and this box, as well as, luckily it was closed, and this box, as well as this box, has something that you don't see a lot in cereal nowadays. What did it have? It had a prize inside. This one, well, Pokemon card. This one, a SpongeBob SquarePants Bowl Buddy. And this one, a special cereal hero or whatever the freak you want to call it. Nowadays, you usually just get something on the back of the box that you, or puzzles, or a little storybook. But back when I was a kid, and when my generation was a kid, and even before that, you got, like those, a prize inside. Or you would save up box tops or a package, the label of the, and you would get some, in Ovaltine, you would get a cool shaker mug where the lid, you put your milk and your Ovaltine in there, you shake it up, and then you pour it in your special little Orphan Annie mug. Don't forget to drink your Ovaltine, like Ralphie in Christmas Story. Other great things you would get would be comic books, and even in the 80s, I saved up box tops and $5 postage and handling and got this super cool Pee-wee's Playhouse lunch kit. It was a plastic one. It wasn't cool, like as cool as the ones we had in the 60s, 70s, metal. Good for smashing upside the head of a bully, like in the song by Marilyn Manson. Now, the downside of the thermoses in, now not this one, mind you, but the downside of the thermoses in the metal lunchboxes in the 60s and the 50s and the very early 70s is, unlike these, they had the plastic, and then it was thermal inside that was glass. And if you dropped your lunchbox with your thermos inside, the glass inside would shatter, rendering this useless. So you usually had to carry a fruit pouch, a juice pouch or milk pouch. And even before then, they were milk bottles. So if you drop those, it shattered too. I mean, back when I was a kid, if you dropped a bottle of Coke, it didn't bounce back up, it shattered. Now, Saturday morning, back to Saturday morning, we would get us a big bowl, our mother's mixing bowl. Remember the mixing bowl? Mixing bowl was somewhat like about the size of this colander that Mom would mix up our birthday cake or our brownies or whatever, and put it in there, and the milk and the egg, and mix it all up. But every morning Saturday morning, I would get a kitchen chair, climb up to the top of the refrigerator. There was a cupboard up above the refrigerator where Mom kept her mixing bowls. I would get a mixing bowl, empty the box of cereal in it so I could get the prize. And then, unlike my half-sister, I would actually eat the cereal while I was watching. No, not a DVD. This was actually broadcast on television from 7 a.m., which was the local stuff, sometimes as early as 6, sometimes even as early as 5. They had the local shows. And then at 8, the networks ABC, NBC, and CBS. We only had 3 networks back then. We had something wonderful back then. It was analog TV. We had something similar to this, but instead of it being cable ready like this one is, most of them had little rabbit ears. I'd show you mine, but it's hooked up to my digital thing on my TV, so I can't show you. But it had rabbit ears. Rabbit ears were antennas, and so it would hook up. It would have 2 little, actually 4 little hooks. They would go. 2 would go on the VHF, and 2 would go on the UHF. Now, VHF was 2 through 13. UHF was 14 through like 83 or something. And we'd also, the antenna would be out like this. Antennas would look like what's on a boombox or whatever. They would telescope out, and we'd go like this with them to pull in the networks, and local stations. Back then, there was not just ABC, CBS, and NBC. Those were the only networks, but we also had a lot of local stations. Channel 50 out of Detroit, Channel 9 out of Chicago, Channel 17 out of Atlanta. Yeah, we could pull those in because we would have these huge, gigantic monstrous antennas on the top of our roofs. And there would be, usually there would be a little thing hooked to it that we could manipulate it from the inside by turning the knob, and the antenna would move around. You could pull in, but depending where you live, you could pull in Atlanta. We couldn't, but where we live, but some of my friends in farther away, a little farther away cities, they could. But we could pull in 50, and 9, and 62, and a lot of other stations. We got a whopping 15 channels. 15 frickin' channels. We were kings. We were kings. This was all in the days before cable. But a few years later, down in out in the city and in Battle Creek, Michigan, they could get 25 channels. Wow. Now, Saturday morning was filled with Tom and Jerry, Scooby-Doo, of course, you know Scooby-Doo, Flintstones, Bugs Bunny, Roadrunner, the Herculoids. Oh boy, the Herculoids. Let me tell you about the Herculoids. Herculoids was a bunch of superheroes from space, I guess. They had two little characters called Gloop and Gleep. They were like Play-Doh or Silly Putty. And they could make themselves into different shapes and stretch, and they look like the Shmoo from Lil Abner. And I know millennials, I'm talking way out of you. What? Google it. It's SCHMOO. And then you look up Herculoids. Look it up, kids. And you still won't know what I'm talking about. Anyway, Saturday mornings would be from like I said, the local stuff would be sometimes as early as 5. Little Rascals, Three Stooges, Cartoon Carnival, Uncle Whoozle-Wusses, Captain What's His Face, you know, local kiddie show hosts. Sometimes a sea captain or a deputy or something, and he'd interact with puppets and the kids in the audience, and then he'd show cartoons and a lot of other stuff. Of course, there was old movie serials were shown too during the local segment. Flash Gordon, Dick Tracy, Batman, Superman, stuff like that. Captain America, Captain America too. And then at 8 o'clock, the network stuff would start. 8 o'clock until 12 o'clock. That was when the kiddie shows ruled. Then at 12 o'clock, it would switch to the teeny bopper stuff, and that was usually Soul Train or American Bandstand or some local dance show. And this was back in the days where this was before the PC Brigade decided that. And then the Christian groups decided that one, cartoons were satanic, and 2, kids weren't learning anything from them. So Saturday morning got axed. And that happened in the late 90s, early 2000s. But Saturday morning, even as early as the 50s, was filled with kids shows. And before cartoons on Saturday morning, before it was nothing but cartoons. That started around 64. One of the earliest cartoons that I remember, I, of course, was only 2 years old then. One of the earliest cartoons I remember was the Beatles. Yes, those Beatles. They had their own cartoon. It wasn't voiced by them. It was voiced by, I think, now I'd like somebody in the comment section to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the voices of the Beatles cartoon were voiced by the same people that did the voices of the Beatles in the Yellow Submarine. Now, I'd like somebody in the comments, if I'm wrong to correct me. Another thing that we did on Saturday mornings, other than watching cartoons and eating giant bowls of sugar-coated cereal, that we of course poured more sugar on, and probably dumped chocolate milk on it, knowing most kids. I know I did. But anyway, another thing we did after cartoons, other than playing outside, we would go down to our local closest town. And for me, that was about a 20-minute bike ride, 15-20-minute bike ride away, or a half an hour walk, depending on how I felt that day, and that Saturday. And we would go to the Saturday matinee. Now, the Saturday matinee was usually a bunch of rambunctious kids that their mommy and daddy dropped off so they could get some extra sleep, since they didn't have work on the weekends, and they would throw us into the theater for a few hours for cartoons and short subjects, and then of course a kiddie type movie. And back in the late 60s, early 70s, when the heyday of Saturday matinees were kind of slowing down a bit, there was no more short subjects made especially for the theater anymore. So we got our mom and dad's short subjects, the Three Stooges, the Little Rascals, stuff like that. And but back in the heyday of Saturday matinees, they had what was known as a serial or a chapter play. Now, a serial or chapter play was basically a long 3 or 4 hour movie chopped up into 12 to 15 chapters, which ended on a cliffhanger each week. Think of something like a movie like Star Wars. You know how it was put into different chapters, or the type of adventure like Indiana Jones type of thing. But each week it would end on a cliffhanger, and that was basically derived from, because the hero usually was actually hanging at the edge of a cliff at the end of the serial. And if you watch the movie Misery, you'll kind of understand the whole idea, because Kathy Bates' character talks about the chapter plays or the serials. Now, towards in the early 60s, when I was a kid, some of the old serials were still playing, because the last serial that was actually produced by a studio was made in I believe, again, I want somebody down in the comments to correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it was 1958 or 59. Could have been as early as 56, but it was somewhere around there, and it was a Western. Most of the serials were either Westerns, jungle adventures, or superheroes based on radio or comic books or comic strips. Your Dick Tracy, your Tarzan, your Buck Rogers, your Flash Gordons, Captain America, Captain Marvel, the Captain Marvel that is now known as Shazam, not the Captain Marvel from Marvel Comics. A lot of you are probably saying, oh, Marvel Comics weren't around then. Yes, they were, but they were called timely comics. And that is where Captain America comes in. And Captain America was around in the 40s. The same Captain America that you're used to today from the first Avenger. And another thing that was still around when I was a kid was OTR, old time radio. I got the tail end of it with CBS Radio Mystery Theater. I can't remember if it was Dimension X or X-1. I think it was Dimension X, and few other mystery or or sci-fi anthology. But before that, in my mom's day, Saturday mornings was on the radio, and it was stuff like Archie. Yes, that Archie, the same one from Riverdale. You millennials are scratching your head. It's been around that long. Yeah. Um, that's the same Archie from Riverdale was on the radio, and even Popeye a radio show, and Superman, and despite what you may be thinking, Batman never had his own radio show. Batman appeared several times on Superman's radio show. Now back to Saturday morning cartoons. When Saturday morning cartoons basically started, before Beatles were one of the first Saturday morning cartoons that were made especially for television. Saturday morning cartoons were basically a bunch of old theatrical cartoons. Yes, they showed cartoons in the theater back then. That's what I was telling you earlier. Listening. Anyway, they were Mighty Mouse Playhouse. Was the first, to my knowledge, the very first Saturday morning cartoon, but it was of old theatrical shorts. And then, of course, there was the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner show and the Porky Pig show and Daffy Duck show. Yes, they all had their separate shows. It was like almost, at one time, Saturday morning was nothing but Warner Brothers, Terry Toons, Harvey Toons, and there was Heckle and Jekyll had their own show. Farmer Alfalfa had his own show. You don't know who that is, look him up. It's not Alfalfa from the Little Rascals, so or our gang, depending on how old you are. And it's the same Bob damn thing, kiddies. But Saturday morning, we'll never get it back. It'll never be the same, and that's because cable and parents groups basically murdered it. Because now you can find cartoons anywhere. You don't have to wait for Saturday morning. Well, we didn't always have to wait for Saturday morning either. After school, there was cartoons, and even before school, there was cartoons for a couple hours. But the Saturday morning was where cartoons reigned. And yes, they even had a special, networks even had a cartoon block on Sunday mornings. That was axed in the early 80s. The Sunday cartoons were basically reruns of the prior season's Saturday morning lineup. But hell, we were stupid kids. We didn't care. We just wanted to plop down in front of the TV and let that cathode rays fry our eyeballs out while we ate big bowls full of sugar-coated cereal that we dumped more sugar on. And we even had special uniforms that we wore on Saturday mornings. Of course we did. Yeah, it was our pajamas. And on our pajamas, we had our favorite Saturday morning cartoon heroes with feet. Had little slippers built into our, and then a little thing in the back where we'd unbutton and we could poop out of it. So we didn't have to pull down our pants. Poop right out of it. Just open up the trap door and poop right out of it. We even had our own special, some of us even had our own special bowls with our favorite cartoon character at the bottom. That we saved up cereal box tops for and sent away with our allowance. What's an allowance? You don't know what an allowance is? Well, that's what the money we got every week for taking out the garbage and feeding the dogs and cats and mowing the lawn or raking the yard and yada, yada, yada. Yeah, we had to work when we were kids. And I know all you SLW brigade, hey, Mom, can you buy me that? Oh, we had Mom, can you buy me that too, even though we got an allowance. We were like, but Mom, all the kids at school has one. I won't be cool. You know, our moms would not want us to be uncool. So yeah, they'd get us the latest gizmo. And ours didn't break the next day. They weren't made out of plastic. They were made out of real tough stuff. They weren't made out of plastic coated corrugated cardboard. They were made out of really tough stuff. Wood, metal, and something from Mars. Something from Mars oh yes. We also had this for our breakfast. The stuff that was so good was good enough for the astronauts. You know, those guys that what's his name had in filmed the moon landing. No, he didn't. It was real. They took this of them, and we drink that with our breakfast and our toast, juice, milk, and Cheerios, part of a balanced breakfast. Or if we did, some of our cooler kids would say the hell with toast. We were lucky enough to have these. Yes, Pop-Tarts, toaster pig, Pop Toaster strudel. This was the real deal right here, buddy. This was the real deal right here. This is what all the cool kids had. Yeah. Lunch boxes. All the cool kids had their favorite characters on them. And of course that Kiss. What would we take in our lunchbox other than the typical peanut butter and jelly sandwiches? Oh yeah. These. Right here. But they weren't pre-packaged. Ours were not pre-packaged. Our moms made ours. We had, and then there was Hostess Twinkies, Ding Dongs, and that was for the richer kids. Us poorer kids, we had something even cooler. The poor kids had the best shit. Fuck Hostess, we had Little Debbie's. Now, Little Debbie's, those were cool. I mean, oh yeah, I had the Hostess. You know how I got them? For trading my Little Debbie's. Because even the rich kids were like, oh man, the Little Debbie's are better than Hostess. We want those. Yeah. Another great thing about being a kid in the 60s and 70s was these things right here, M&Ms. There was a special mysticism behind the M&Ms. Each M&M was something different. We had the yellow ones, the green ones, and the brown ones all had special powers. Now, the yellow ones, of course, would make you pee, or so we said on the playground. Brown ones make you poop, and I ain't going to say what the green ones did. You can look that up for yourself on the Google. Now, for the longest time, they didn't make these anymore. They quit making these. The red ones, that's because they said the red dye was something that made you psychotic or something. I think that's what happened to Charles Manson. I think that's what it was. Orange ones didn't do shit. And we didn't even have blue ones back then. And then another thing that we had, we didn't have to wait for Halloween for this, kiddies. No, we had this all year round. This is what we had all year round. We had the fucking monster cereals. Not only was there Count Chocula, Blueberry, and Frankenberry, we had two more that I don't have the boxes to demonstrate, but there was Fruit Brute and Yummy Mummy. Of course, Count Chocula tasted like chocolate. Blueberry tasted like blueberry. Frankenberry tasted like strawberry. Fruit Brute was just a bunch of different fruits, and so was Yummy Mummy. So I kind of remember thinking as a kid, what's the point of having two different monsters on the same frickin' cereal? Another thing we had back in the 70s and 60s and 70s in our comic books, it was freaking cool. Comic books were a lot bigger. This is just a special issue. They don't even hardly have the special 100-page comics anymore. They did for Batman, the 1000th issue. That was 144 pages. That was something freaking cool, but there was no advertisements. That was the first thing I turned to every issue. You know, you got the BB gun, it'll shoot your eye out. There were sea monkeys, X-ray glasses that you could see through your skin. Of course, it was an optical delusion, and sea monkeys were nothing more than brine shrimp. But hey, we didn't give a fuck. We'd shell out our hard-earned money and get those damn things. We loved them. We loved being ripped off. We didn't give a shit we were being ripped off. We loved the things. It was 6-foot monsters that were nothing more than a poster on polyurethane some shit, and of course, comic books were filled with wonderful advertisements, crazy gags like. What are you talking about? Anyway, it was itching powder. Somebody dumped it in my shirt, I guess. Yeah, you could get that in the back of comic books. There's joke gum that would make your mouth either look bloody, hot gum, and hot pepper gum. There was gum that you'd take and snap you with a little mousetrap mechanism. Joy buzzers, which you'd shake my hand. And they were harmless. And watch Pee-wee's Big Adventure. You'll get an idea of what some of the gags in the back of the comic books were like. It was filled with them. And little army men, 200 army men